Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of PR from the Heart's Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 248. That is the 248th trolley stop here at PR from the Heart, here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, as part of our back to school season, our back to school celebration, one of our favorite times of the year here at PR from the Heart. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart and the author of the new award-winning children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children. We hope that all of you are enjoying the back to school season wherever you are and wherever you may be. Of course, joined as always each and every trolley stop by my faithful furry friend and forever companion, little Forrest. He reminds me that he is not only just my faithful furry friend and my forever companion in this beautiful journey called life, but he is also my co-host on the Children's Book Spotlight Series as well. Little Forrest will be making contributions throughout the course of this particular trolley stop. We have so many good things to share with all of you because, number one, we are now counting down to the 250th trolley stop of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, which is so ever so close. We, of course, are coming off the heels of the landmark children's literacy event at Mall of America. Right off the bat, we want to take the time to thank all of you, our friends and neighbors, both old and new, who came out in full force to support building a culture of reading in your classroom and turning pages, changing lives. We want to thank the Mall of America Community Foundation. We want to thank Kidlit TV. We want to thank Way to Grow, the free book buggy, all of the shining stars, the proud members of the PR from the Heart family, in addition to Shayla Reeves, the Emmy Award-winning journalist from WCCO CBS News Minnesota, our friend and neighbor, Joe Schmidt, of course, the former Emmy Award-winning sports director for KSTP, and our friends and neighbors in the Twin City media, WCCO, CBS News Minnesota, Fox 9, as well as KTSP. We had such a fantastic time, and this leads us to this particular trolley stop and where we stand in this present moment. I also want to take the time to thank everyone for all of your birthday wishes. Whenever we have the opportunity to do a children's book spotlight series, when I have that next circle around the sun, I think is how the expression goes. In the words of our favorite neighbor, Fred Rogers, it is such a good feeling. Now, amidst the back to school season, just amidst life, let's be honest, there are times where lifes. And there are times when we can move through the problem of the day, or we can move through a difficult challenge in our lives. It's long since been said that life is not always rainbows and gumdrops. We would always like to be rainbows and gumdrops each and every day, but life has polarity. Life has contrast, and it really teaches us that we have inner strength. And when we take the time to tap into that inner strength, that reflects externally in our surroundings, in our relationships, and that too is such a good feeling. And it always helps when there is a beautiful new children's book that helps us to encapsulate something that we are talking about on a children's book spotlight series episode, especially when it comes to connecting with our inner strength, knowing the fact that we have the ability to help create the highest and best solutions for a problem that we may be experiencing. And just knowing the fact that, isn't it interesting, if we take the time to just briefly pause and reflect, and the different things that we've moved through during the course of our life, whether it be small, medium, or supersize, we know that things always have a way of working themselves out. And that really provides us with peace and harmony within our mind, our body, our soul, our spirit, our nervous system, and our limbic system, and everything else in between. Again, leave it to a brand new best-selling children's book to help us see the way through all of this. We encourage all of you once again, our friends and neighbors, our listeners and viewers, I should say, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. You can head on over to author NoreneOlsen.com. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that is your particular online vehicle of your choosing. You can leave your 5-star review for Norene Olsen's Molly and Dane hair problems. It is now available. One of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Norene is by, again, leaving that 5-star review that lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. And of course, as well, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Molly and Dane Hair Problems, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And then lastly, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents. Of course, one of the many ways that you can do your part to make this back to school season, this entire new school year and beyond, more affirming for your students is to remind them that they have the ability to tap into that inner strength on their end of things that can really help them not only during the course of the school year, but for the rest of their lives. So one of the great ways that you can do your part to be able to weave that in and integrate that is by scheduling an author school visit with Norene. Again, you can head on over to her official website, which we've included in the description below. The trolley, of course, since we are heading now into the final quarter of 2025, it helps when the trolley always travels to beautiful areas in the country. So we are traveling, of course, from San Diego, California, all the way across the country to the beautiful city of Tampa, Florida, where we find, of course, someone who has also given her time and her service to our country. We'll be talking more about her journey as well, too. Best-selling children's author Norene Olsen joining us here as our featured guest here on episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Norene, thank you for spending some quality time with little Forrest and I. How are things with you this back-to-school season?
Oh, I'm so glad the trolley was able to come here for episode 148. I'm kind of busy getting ready for the school year myself. I'm spending time with, I've got 4 little Forrests, although they're not so little. I've got 2 labs, a golden, and a pug. Forrest might enjoy playing with that pug. And I'm working on more books, getting ready to make sure that children out there are filled with lots of wonderful books in the future.
I'm so excited for our interview, for our conversation. It's been a long time coming, of course, as well. As Norene is a proud member of the PR from the Heart family, you can also stay connected to PR from the Heart on social media at PR from the Heart to watch and enjoy any of Norene's featured in-studio television interviews, including her newest in-studio interview with our friends and neighbors at Good Morning Cake Land on the ABC affiliate in Wichita, Kansas. And of course, one brief note of housekeeping before we officially continue episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. If you are new to the program or if you have been joining us since day one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for us here at PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight series during this back to school season and beyond, how you can also pledge your support for Norene as well. And to pledge your support for those in your life who are moving through, maybe just it's the problem of the day, the concern of the day. Maybe someone is moving through the darkest season of their life. This book that we are talking about is so much more than a hair-raising story, so to speak. It really provides us with a lot of affirming life lessons that even we as adults can take from Molly and Dane Hair Problems and move forward. So, of course, you can, if you haven't had the chance to do so, subscribe to our official YouTube channel at PR from the Heart. Join the near 30,000 members of the PR from the Heart family, our loyal YouTube subscribers. And of course, you can share this very special trolley stop that you are now enjoying. That is episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. So, Norene, we always like to start things off because we always love to help people share their stories. For 11 years plus at PR from the Heart and nearly 7 years now at the Children's Book Spotlight series, there's something that happens when we take the time to help someone share their story, especially their origin story. And you've had a fascinating life. I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing authors over the past 11 plus years, and you really have a very powerful journey. Before we kind of, go through the different chapters of your life, can you share with us really where it all began for you? Because sometimes we know that when we have a mission and a purpose for children, sometimes we know very early on, but sometimes there's different sorts of experiences that we move through, whether it be it's the birth of a child, whether it be, we've got that affirming teacher in school that says, hey, I think you'd make a great author or a great writer someday, or a combination of both, so to speak. Could you share with us really where it all began for you? Because from what I've been able to learn and gather about yourself since the time that we began working together with one another, is that you really did know at a very young age that you had creative skills, gifts, and talents.
Well, I was born and raised in the state of Kansas, and at about the age of 14, an KC-135 crashed in Wichita, and I wrote a poem about it that was indeed published in the Wichita Times. I, in fact, self-published a book of poetry that each of the members of my family has. In fact, I was surprised to find out my brother kept his over the years. He still has it. I wrote several poems that were published in various independent journals, and I wanted to become a creative writer. However, there wasn't a lot of money in writing back in those days. I did get a degree in English education and journalism, but as I was teaching English and journalism in high school, I found out that my job was going to be eliminated one year, and a good friend of mine suggested I look into the branches of the military. So I joined the United States Air Force. While I was in the Air Force, among other things, I actually helped publish an Air Force magazine. And I didn't do that, though, as a profession. As a profession in the Air Force, I actually directed fighter aircraft in on airborne targets. During during wartime, it would have been to shoot them down. During peacetime, it was to identify them. On several occasions, I was responsible for rescuing several people. On two of those aircrafts, I rescued a total of, or I helped rescue as part of a team, a total of 500 some people, because the civilian aircraft ran into trouble, and I scrambled aircraft that went and intercepted them. As you know from recent events in history, when an aircraft goes down in the ocean, it's hard to track their whereabouts. But if we have aircraft circling overhead, we can easier find where they are. We were fortunate in those two aircraft incidents to get the aircraft back to land safely, so we didn't have to send out rescuers for them. In several other incidents, they were individual aircraft that had got struck by lightning and lost their directional equipment. So I sent people out one by one, and those pilots directed them back to land safely. I also wrote war plans and did a lot of writing, technical writing in the military. When I got out, though, I found myself, after I retired, I did teach again. I taught Air Force Junior ROTC, whereas I had taught English before I went into the military. I was teaching physics as well as writing to students and math. Um, I was teaching students how to dress, different ethics, and I retired from that. That was all part of Air Force Junior Officer Training, Air Force Junior ROTC, as well as Army Junior ROTC, Navy Junior ROTC, Coast Guard Junior ROTC. Those are not recruitment programs. They are citizenship programs. They're there to teach students to be better citizens. But when I retired from doing that, I found myself getting a little bit bored. So I was at my daughter's one day, and my young granddaughter didn't want anybody to touch her hair. She didn't want it combed. She didn't care. My older grandson didn't want to comb his long, beautiful hair. And I decided, well, I was going to write a book. I was going to go back to writing poetry like I used to. And so I sat down and I wrote Molly and Dane, Hair Problems. And I worked with Miriam Laundry Publishing. And within a year's time, I had this beautiful book. I contacted Pamela Gray Wilcox. She did a gorgeous job illustrating it. I believe she read my mind. because she knew exactly what I wanted for the illustrations. She and I have become great friends. And as a result of that, came up with this wonderful book, which has a lot of life's lessons for little kids.
We're gonna be sharing more about the story momentarily, but I want to thank you for your service. And it's very important that I mention that it's when we move through challenges in life, and I mean sometimes, for example, like for me, I go back 10 years ago and was given a cancer diagnosis on mine. I think it's a testicular cancer diagnosis, and it was a very interesting chapter, but it thankfully worked itself out. I remember that, after I had heard the news from my oncologist, literally, or my urologist, right across the street from where the urologist's office was, is where my grandmother and grandfather were laid to rest. And I remember going across the street, and I went to her tombstone, and I, looked up to the heavens, and I said, I surrender. When you were moving through some of the most difficult times in your life, especially whether it be when you were in the armed forces as well too, and even maybe if there's anything else that you experienced challenge-wise in your life, because when we move through those challenges and difficulties and obstacles and problems and stressors and troubles and worries, we know that through experience that we can get through whatever comes our way. It's long since been said that God doesn't give us what we can't handle, as the expression goes. So, what were some of the things that you feel help you through to get through some of those challenges and difficulties in life to get through to the other side?
Well, I think the most important thing is God. And even in the military, they say there are three things that are the most important values in your life. They are either God, family, or country. And at either any time in your life, one or the other is going to take the number one seat. And I believe God is the one that takes the number one seat all the time. I can remember, though, there was one occasion where one of my daughters got hurt and she had to be taken to the hospital. She needed stitches in her chin. And even the hospital commander called my boss and said, this lady needs to come over here. Her daughter needs stitches in her chin. My son was with her at the time. And my commander came running in and he said, do you know your daughter needs stitches in her chin? And I said, yes, sir, I know, but I can't leave until somebody gets here to relieve me because I'm responsible for the entire uh, Pacific Ocean right now, and she just needs stitches. And about that time, my boss picked up the phone and he called the commander of the Army hospital and said, sir, she can't leave right now. She will be there as soon as her replacement arrives. And I hated that. I hated it very much, but I knew I could not leave my position. I was responsible for the security of the entire Pacific Ocean, and I knew my daughter needed 4 stitches. Which is more important, the entire security of the Pacific Ocean and the United States of America, or 4 stitches? My daughter wasn't going to die. And even if she were, I still wasn't able to leave. And I knew God was taking care of her. God wasn't going to let anything wrong come to her. And about that time, my replacement came in. I left. I went to the hospital. The hospital commander came in and apologized to me. He didn't understand how important my job was. He assumed that what I was doing was not nearly as important as what it was. He assumed I was just shirking my responsibilities as an officer. Some of the jobs in the military are very important, and you can't just get up and walk away. And sometimes you can't just explain that to an individual over the phone. My children understood, and they knew that the minute my replacement arrived, I was going to be there. I knew who I could call as soon as I heard she was at the hospital. I called a man right down the street. He didn't come in uniform. He didn't have to. He just needed to come in and stay there long enough for me to go to the hospital so my daughter could get the stitches. And the hospital commander ended up getting in a lot of trouble. But again, he didn't know what my job was. He didn't understand. And God was there. God was there for my daughter. He took care of her until I got there, and I knew he would. God is always on our side.
I really appreciate you sharing that because, one of the reasons why, we're just a few trolley stops away from celebrating not only the 250th episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series, but the 7-year anniversary of the program. And when I made the decision to, because I had, going back many years, I've done different interviews and different iterations, going back to my time as the founder and host of the award-winning Monday Night Mayhem Wrestling radio show, followed by So Luminous Radio, which was a special health, wellness, inspirational, and spiritually based radio show and podcast. Knowing the fact that when we take the time to share our stories, that is really when there's healing that happens. And when we move through something in our lives, right, there's always people that come into our lives that maybe have moved through something similar, and they can provide us with hope, with inspiration. And then there's times where, let's say, if we move through, let's say, the cancer journey of our life, or just some sort of a very, troubling moment, so to speak, and there's someone that we meet that say, hey, I'm going through this right now. You can provide that same peace and reassurance, knowing the fact that this too shall pass. And it's interesting because, I know that, in this day and age, still probably the two most sensitive things to many people are either religion or politics, right? But knowing the fact that whether we are religious, whether we are spiritual, knowing the fact that there is that timeless expression that people resonate with, I feel, from members of all faiths, ages, ethnicities, cultures, is this too shall pass. And knowing the fact that, again, there's times we have the bad hair day, and that's, the biggest problem that we have of the day or during the week. And then there's times that we're moving through something like the cancer journey, or if we, experience an accident of some kind, so to speak. And we have to trust and affirm that, as you said, that God, or if someone chooses to use the term spirit, whatever it is that they connect with, knowing the fact that there is that divine support, that intercession, where even if you're just having the bad hair day, that you'll find the right brush or the right comb or the right stylist, right?
Right.
And so, being able to just, really embody these things, especially as of right now, it really makes sense. We, of course, are almost ready to crack the cover and dive into the pages of Norene Olsen's brand new children's book, best-selling, that is, published by our friends and neighbors at Miriam Laundry Publishing, Molly and Dane, Hair Problems. We encourage all of you, once again, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Norene's official website, author NoreneOlsen.com. Again, if you head on over to Amazon.com, if that's your favorite online vehicle of your choosing, one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Norene is by leaving that 5-star review on Amazon that lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. Of course, as well, by heading on over to Norene's official website, and of course, just spreading the word on Norene's brand new best-selling children's book. You head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and if they do not stock their copies of Molly and Dane Hair Problems, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, to be precise, episode number 248. And of course, for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, really important that we do our part to be able to let our students, our kids, know the fact that they have the ability to tap into their creativity, their inspiration, and their inner strength, all three and then some. And these are life lessons that Norene can help to teach your students through an in-person or a virtual author school visit. So you can head on over to Norene's official website, which again, we've included in the description below, so that you can connect with Norene to schedule your very own author school visit for not only the 2025-2026 school year, but also beyond, because Norene is just getting started with her work, as we like to say. One of the reasons why I'm really glad that you're sharing your story and that we're doing this conversation, when we take the time to crack the cover and dive into the pages of the story that we're sharing on the program, you mentioned that this obviously was inspired through real life experience, and oftentimes when we have people that come into our lives, or things that we experience, we can get the ideas for our books. I know that, 4 of the Earth Angels that came through my life, Jane the loving grandmother, and Dennis the Italian restaurant owner, Georgianne the animal loving storyteller, and Patrick the Reiki master, all of my experiences with those 4 individuals provided the Earth Angels for my new award-winning children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children. I want to mention right off the bat before we crack the cover and dive into the pages of the story. And of course, as you know, on every children's book Spotlight Series episode, we never like to give away the whole kit and caboodle. So we don't want to give away the whole story. But
Right.
but you and Pam did a great job of putting this story together, because it's very easy when you just look at the story and say, okay, it's a fun story, and and Molly and Dane are going through some problems with their hair. But when you take the time to really feel into the story and you connect with the story, I always refer to it, when we take the time to connect to our stories on a visceral level, visceral, a visceral level, we know that when you look at the whole story in the context, we don't just have to have that bad hair day. Sometimes, like, that's what I refer to as the good first world problem. If we have the bad hair day and that's the problem of the day or the issue of the week, that's like a feather in our cap. But when we're going through something that's a little bit more difficult, we can say, okay, the first thing that we as adults look for is we want to make sure that we're providing safety, security, trust, and comfort to our own inner child. Hence, going back to the children's books, right? So this is why I feel that your story is super helpful for not only kids, and as they're creating the building blocks and the foundation of their lives, they're learning about healthy habits. We're going to talk more about that as well, too. But I just really want to commend you and Pam for creating this story that even adults can connect to on the visceral level. So it's not just, on the surface. Yes, you can look at it like, okay, the kids are experiencing some hair problems and they have some adventures, and we hope that Molly and Dane's, hair-raising adventures turn out well. And spoiler alert, without giving away the whole kit and caboodle, they do. But they learn some super cool things along the way that they're also teaching us as adults. And the last thing that I want to mention, just sharing some of my thoughts and reflections on the story, is that oftentimes kids can teach us so much about ourselves. We think as adults, sometimes we think that we have it all together, and we realize we're just learning along the way still, right? There's a reason I use the term we're walking each other home, because little Forrest is teaching me. Your furry friends are teaching you. Kids are teaching us, so to speak. So let's put a pin in the whole thread about what are kids teaching us. Let's crack the cover and dive into the pages of the story without giving away the whole thing. Could you share with us really Molly and Dane and who they are, and specifically the hair problems that they're experiencing?
Well, I think what's important about Molly and Dane is these 2 are best friends, and they're not your normal best friends, so to speak. They're a boy and a girl. They're totally different. I mean, you see a lot of girl, boy, boy. They're neighbors, but they're different. I hate to call out the fact that one's white and one's black, but they are. And that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter if they're green and purple or yellow and orange. They're just best friends. Kids don't care. They're kids. And they're best friends, and they have fun together. They have all kinds of adventures together. They come up with totally different hair problems, and they're going to go out and they're going to solve these problems together. Their problems are different, but in some ways they're the same because it's a problem. So they're going to work together to solve the problem. And they decide on the same courses of action. They're going to voluntarily go to the doctor. How many kids do you know that are going to voluntarily go and see a doctor? Most kids don't want to go to the doctor, but Molly and Dane know that doctors solve problems, so that's part of their problem-solving routine. And they also know that veterinarians can solve problems, so they voluntarily go to the veterinarian to see if the veterinarian can help them solve their problem. So they're holding hands, they're hugging each other, they're laughing together, they're crying together, they're sharing their emotions, they're working together to try to solve their problem. And that's what little kids will do. They are just best friends and they're going to work together to try and solve their problems. And I think that's important. They don't care what the rest of the world thinks. They're just best friends trying to solve their problem.
And that's something that especially, when we hear the term problem, life helps us to remember that, especially if let's say we've moved through a challenging childhood, for example, and let's say it was filled with problems, right? We may feel that we don't have the inner strength and the outer strength to tend to the problem. If there were times where, let's say, our nervous system was very wound up, super sensitive, and whenever it could be something as simple as, let's say, the dog barks, right? And you get a little jumpy, so to speak. But then there's times where, even like the simplest of problems could seem like the most complicated, so to speak. One of the things that we always like to be able to provide here for our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, especially for parents, for grandparents, for caregivers, for educators and librarians who are watching a children's book spotlight series, they can instantaneously extract tips, tools, strategies that they can implement into their own lives and implement them into the lives of their children, their grandchildren, their students. When we are experienced with a problem, I think this is, if you can frame this as a twofold response, if we as adults, and if we're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling stressed, right? We've already mentioned it's the back to school season, so we as adults can just, tend to have a lot of stuff on the plate. What are some tools that you can suggest when we as adults experience a problem and we're feeling a little bit overworked, we don't know how we're going to handle it? What are some specific things that come to mind on your end of things? And then the same thing for our kids. When we're doing our part as parents and caregivers and custodians of little ones, and we see our little ones experiencing problems, we obviously want to try to not be like helicopter parents and caregivers. We want to, allow them to kind of figure their own things out, because we want to be able to create the next generation of responsible kids at the same point in time. So starting off with the thread of the overstressed adults, who, if for those people who are tuning in, who are navigating through whatever the problem may be, what would be some suggestions, some tips, some tools, and some strategies to help with the process so that they can do their part to create the highest and best solution to the problem?
Well, sometimes when children are facing a problem, step back and see what the children come up with as a solution. You'd be surprised what kids can do. One thing that was hard for me when my twins were little was letting them dress themselves, because they would come out with some of the strangest clothing. But if they want to dress themselves, let them. Who cares if they put stripes with checks or red with green? It's okay. In fact, today that's fashionable. One thing you never want to do, though, is you don't want to ever talk bad about your friends in front of your kids. You want to be nice about your friends. Talk nicely about your friends. Don't talk badly about your friends in front of your kids, because your kids are going to pick up on that. And they're going to think, well, it's okay for me to talk badly about my friends. And that's not right. Talk well about your friends in front of your children. Don't badmouth them. Let them know that you love your friends and speak well of them in front of them. That's very important. So In fact, speak well about everybody in front of your friends.
Mm,
Uh, Keep the bad news away from your kids. Another thing is, if you believe in God, let your kids know that. You know, it's never bad to say a prayer, maybe, at least at bedtime, if not at your meals. Let
mm.
them know that. Kids will pick up on that, and it's not a bad thing to do.
These are
I lay down to sleep is a pretty decent prayer. Just don't say that part. If I die before I wake, that can scare kids. So yeah.
And those are all, I feel, extraordinarily useful and helpful, not only now during the back to school season, but these are things that we can utilize at any given point in time of the day, the week, the month, or the year. One of the other things that I also want to add in is, and some people believe in this maybe more so than others, but I'm a firm believer that it's long since been said that words create worlds. So WORDS, create worlds, WORLDS. And I know growing up, like I was a kid who was very anxious, I was stressed, and I had a tendency to believe in what I refer to as the other shoe syndrome, right? Where if that was moving through something, it would be a matter of, oh, okay, well, the shoe's going to drop and it's going to make it worse. Or if things were going well, I would be asking myself, when's the other shoe going to drop? Because I wasn't used to things going well as a kid. And I helped over time to work on healing that, realizing the fact that now I'm a firm believer that I'm stepping always into the best chapters of my life. I know that even if the problem comes into my life, I now know that the problem is there to teach me something. So I'm looking at it from the solution of, what is this meant to teach me? What am I meant to learn from this? Versus focusing on the problem. And at the same point in time, this kind of goes back to what you were talking about, our faith in God and our belief that we have. When we have a problem, and this is where prayer always comes in. I spoke with someone recently who said is that, like, when you worry, it's kind of like canceling out a prayer. And you have to trust the fact that if you are needing a divine solution, if you're needing heavenly intercession, right? Even if you're just looking for the right comb to help with the bad hair day or the right brush, you have to trust the fact that you're able to allow that solution to come through to the problem. And then when you get to the other side of the problem, then you can, this is one of the things that I really feel that we can do for both ourselves and our kids, is we can do our part to really congratulate ourselves for the strength that we displayed, for how we are showing up for ourselves and for people around us during the navigation of the problem, so to speak, and that the problem won't last forever. I think that that's something that you kind of, what you had alluded to briefly, is the fact that, kids might get a little scared in saying, oh, we're going through a problem, and they might think that it's going to last a long time. Whether you're religious or spiritual or none of the above, there's the expression, this too shall pass. And I think that it's important that kids know that, because it really is our role as parents and caregivers and custodians of our children to really let them know that everything is going to be okay. Even though it's not okay in this particular moment, hence the problem, everything will be okay. Noting the fact that one thing that I also wanted to talk about in our remaining time as well, too, I had mentioned the thread about kids are here to teach us, right? And there's times as adults that we can think, I'm smarter. Like, I went through X number of years of education, grammar school, high school, and college, and what can my third grader teach me, right? Why do you believe it's important to allow ourselves to release the need to think that we know it all? But even on that thread more so, why is it really important to listen to what our children are telling us right now? Whether it be if we are a parent and it's our own child, or whether it be collectively as the children of the world. I feel that kids, when they come in now, they're more intuitive. They're spot on. They know what it is that they're doing. Over the years, you probably have heard terms like crystal children, rainbow children, like there's different terminologies that we can give to kids. But what I do feel is that the kids that are coming into the world right now, they know what they want to do. They're very connected to mission and purpose. But that said, why do you feel it's important for us to be able to pay attention and listen to our kids more than ever before?
Well, for one thing, they're much smarter about electronics than I'll ever be. However, at the same time, I think we've got to limit their time with electronics and make sure they get outside and enjoy nature, because there's still a lot to be garnered from going outside. Um, I would encourage you to take them shopping with you, even if you shop at Goodwill. Let them pick out what they want. They're very good at coordinating colors and designs. They have great ideas. Their brains are so intuitive and so aware of what's going on in the world around them. Um, if they're being bullied, let them tell you. And a lot of kids these days are being bullied. Don't shut them down. Listen to them. If they're trying to tell you that, take it to heart and listen. If they have ideas, listen to those ideas. Don't shut them down. They've got some great ideas inside them. They want to share what they know. They want to share those ideas. They've got so much going on in those little heads, and you can learn so much from what they have to say. The ideas that they are wanting to share with you are invaluable, and don't miss out on those opportunities. Spend as much time with your kids as you can. Turn off the TV and just listen to what they have to say. Turn
Mm.
off the radio, turn off those electronics, and talk to them. You'd be surprised what they have to share with you. Spend time at the table, maybe playing games of some kind. You know, there's nothing wrong with those old board games or
Nope.
a card game, or, you know, they're still good, and the kids will talk to you. Eat a meal with them and find out what their day's been about. You'd be surprised what's on their minds, and they will talk to you.
I'm really glad that you're taking the time to share that as well too, because again, when we are eternal learners, there's a term that I learned about years ago, and I think it was I forget if it was the beloved spiritual teacher, New York Times bestselling author, Dr. Wayne Dyer. I think it was him that I first learned about this, and he used the term Earth School. How every day we show up and we have divine assignments, and they often come in the form of relationships, because relationships are really where we learn the most. Now, one might think is, when you get to college, whether it be you're a senior in college, or if you go on for your master's degree, or if you go in for your doctorate, or whatever the case might be, eventually you get to the point where you've been in school so long and you say, I'm done. Like, I'm finally done. No more learning. I've spent years and decades learning. But then we realize that as human beings and as souls, we're learning throughout the course of our life until the time comes to, head on up there. And even then, I feel that we're still learning after that. But when you can connect to the thread that you remain humble and grateful and appreciative, knowing the fact that even if you don't have the answers, I think this is a really big universal message for all of us. If you don't have the answer to the problem, the answer will come in, because we, especially as adults, we can get very frustrated. We're moving through the problem and maybe the right person hasn't come in, or just the answer hasn't come in. And you have to trust in the fact that everything always has its way of working itself out. We're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. U.S. Air Force veteran and best-selling children's author Norene Olsen. We are fully immersed in her brand new best-selling children's book, Molly and Dane, Hair Problems, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Miriam Laundry Publishing. Of course, you can head on over to Norene's official website, which we've included in the description below, authornoreneolsen.com. If you head on over to amazon.com, and if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Norene is by leaving a 5-star review, going over to amazon.com, letting Norene know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's and independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Molly and Dane Hair Problems, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. And then, of course, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can do your part to be able to make this a very important, not only back to school season, but school year where our little ones can learn life lessons that will help them not only just during the course of the school year, but through the rest of their natural lives in the process. Head on over to Norene's official website to schedule your author's school visit by going on over to Norene's official website. Again, Norene, author NoreneOlsen.com, which we've included in the description below. One of the things as well, too, is that I also wanted to take the time to encapsulate is that in life, it's always about creating a balance between enjoying the present moment and looking ahead, because it's long since been said that even if you are moving through the problem, if you have something to look forward to, that's something that's key. Because if you are moving through whatever the thing may be, whether it be, let's say, in 3 months, you have a vacation that's lined up, of course, we're a couple of months away from the holiday season. Just when we're recording this episode in real time, I was in Los Angeles this past week at the CBS News Los Angeles KCAL News Studios. And when I got back to my hotel, I was watching a TV segment, and they were already talking on a different channel, but they were already talking about Halloween and Christmas. And I'm like, man, it's only August. Like, don't fast forward the seasons, right? But I share this because it's always important to have something to look forward to, whether it be Halloween, you're a big Halloween guy or gal, you love Christmas, right? There's always something to look forward to. And you have something that you are in the process of creating right now. And you're working, of course, with your amazing illustrator, Pamela Wilcox. Big shout out to her. By the way, we, of course, are super excited to mention, in case we haven't had the opportunity to do so, we just had myself and, of course, this man to my left shoulder, above my left shoulder, David Newell. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on the popular long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. One of the 2 books that we are spotlighting and showcasing on episode number 52 of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast, the sister program of the Children's Book Spotlight series, is Pamela's brand new children's book, Tux the Little Emperor. So a little quick shout out as well, and you can have the opportunity to enjoy the newest episode of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast with myself and David Newell. But you and Pam are working on a very special story that is really impacting those people who are hardest hit by a natural disaster that, especially over these last several years, those people who have experienced hurricanes, whether you go back years ago, decades ago, I think it was Hurricane Andrew in the Florida area. And then just most recently, the most notable hurricane was Hurricane Katrina that hit New Orleans. And noting the fact that there's kids and families that need support, you and Pam are doing your part to provide a lifeline for those families who are navigating through being on the other side of a hurricane. Could you give a little sneak preview of what children and parents and families can expect with your next release together?
Right, we're working on Hurricane Hullabaloo, which will be about some animals that encounter a hurricane and they all have to evacuate. And of course, the animals, whether they may be enemies to begin with, but they all become friends and evacuate and then return. It's going to be out next summer, and it should be, again, a bestseller, written in rhyme. I think you'll love it. It's going to be an amazing book.
I love that. And it's a matter of, there's, one of the blessings that I've experienced through the course of my career doing PR publicity work for children's authors is noting the fact that every children's book has inherent worth and value. And it's really needed, especially as of right now with, the world being the place that it is, and we're moving through different sorts of things on a daily capacity. One of the many redeeming things as well, too, little Forrest, as I mentioned, he always likes to make contributions to every children's book spotlight series episode. Little Forrest and I have had the opportunity to read and enjoy from cover to cover Molly and Dane's hair problems. And little Forrest, he also reminds me that for all movie buffs that are out there, if you remember, like in the 80s and 90s, we remember the late movie critic duo Siskel and Ebert. When they loved a movie, they gave it 2 thumbs up. Well, one of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature over the last 3 years, little Forrest is almost going to be celebrating his 3rd birthday
Oh,
on
wow.
September the 11th. But little Forrest is proud to give 2 paws up for Norene Olsen's brand new best-selling children's book, Molly and Dane, Hair Problems. So, little Forrest, thank you for your contribution, as always, to this particular episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series. He always likes, because sometimes he gets little snarls in his fur, and I have to. So he even has his own hair problems as well too. So I have to let Forrest know, hey, you know what, Forrest, if we're moving through this, it will be okay. I've got your trusted brush over here. It's all good in the process. And I also do have to mention as well before I forget. So I remember, growing up, and I always have this photo with me here in my office in the PR from the Heart recording studios. So this is my photo. This is me as a little boy. This is I think I was at a preschool or kindergarten. So I remember when we got our report cards, they would take like a little glamour shot. I called them the glamour shots back then. And they would put this like right in front and center of our report card. So I remember I had hair problems galore. I had what I would refer to as the cowlick. This area right here would always be sticking up. So I remember over the years, I used everything from like gel and spray and mousse. And then eventually, one of that, I don't want to call it the silver lining, but when I did move through the cancer experience in 2015, and I remember I lost my hair. And I remember when it started to grow back and it was just shorter to maintain. And I'm like, this is a lot easier. So again, even, when we have our own hair problems, again, they always have their own way of working themselves out. I also want to mention as well, and we always feel his presence and spirit whenever we record a children's book spotlight series episode, whenever we do work in service each and every day, we remember the late Fred Rogers, of course, the host of the long-running popular children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And in many ways, shapes, and forms, Norene, whether it be his time on the Neighborhood, whether it be when he traveled across the country, took part in different sorts of talks, commencement speeches, when he traveled to hospitals to visit sick kids, most notably when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmy shortly before he passed from stomach cancer. And he always kept the time, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a full minute. He encouraged those who helped love us into being. And that was his way of saying, remember those people who came into our lives where, let's say we were moving through the challenge or the problem of the day. I always use the term earth angels in many respects. Those people that come into our lives that help to provide us with the reminder of the inner strength that we need, or maybe they actually physically come in with the support. Oftentimes it's said that, people come into our lives as the answers to our prayers in many respects. Who are some of the people that you would like to publicly recognize? I know that we obviously mentioned Pamela Wilcox, the wonderful, amazing author, the wonderful, amazing illustrator that you have, who's brought Molly and Dane to life. Who are some of the other people that you would like to publicly recognize that have helped love you, Norene Olsen, into being?
Well, my mother, even though she passed away about 55 years ago, and my dad, he always believed in me. My son, my daughters, a good friend of mine named Terry, who encouraged me to go into the military. There have been so many people, a lot of friends along the way who've always believed in me. And of course, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I wouldn't be here without him. No.
It's long since been said, and thank you for sharing those individuals as well. It's long since been said that, and I'll paraphrase Fred's words, that whether those individuals are near or far, whether they're still with us walking this earthly plane or they're looking down from heaven, that they're smiling, that they're shining down in many respects, knowing that you're making such an indelible impact in the lives and the hearts and the minds of children and parents and families and educators. And as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books as well. We're also huge Disney buffs here at the Children's Book Spotlight series. And there's something about the Disney magic. I remember last year, I always wanted to go to Disneyland at Christmas time during the holidays. And my heavens, I have to share this brief story, Norene. So again, one would think that I get goosebumps talking about this. So I remember going to Disneyland during the holiday season. I think it was December, if I'm not mistaken. So December 2024, if you're watching this in real time. And all of a sudden, I heard it was a church hymn, and I'm almost positive, and I have to go back and tunnel into my memory. I'm almost positive that it was O Come, Emmanuel. Now, one would think if you would be going to Disneyland, you probably wouldn't be hearing like, churchy kind of Christmas music, so to speak. There was this procession. It was a procession of singers that were going up to the front of Disneyland, and it was almost like a heavenly choir. And it was just so, I'm like, my heavens, this is happening at Disneyland. But I just share this because there's something about the Disney magic. It reminds us that we have the ability to bring to form and shape our dreams, our desires, our goals, our ambitions, that we have the ability to fulfill our wishes. And in Turn It in Kind, we have the opportunity to help and support those in our life. We can provide inspiration, motivation, empowerment. If anything, that friendly reminder, showing up that heavenly mirror. We can inspire those in our lives and help those people in our lives, whether it be family members, friends, loved ones, fellow neighbors, random passersby. We can remind them that they have the ability to fulfill their own wishes as well, too. We go back to the year 1992, was a great year. I think I was 11 at that point in time or another. We remember the late Robin Williams, and we remember how he voiced the iconic Genie of the Lamp in Disney's beloved animated classic Aladdin. We have a little segment that we always close out the children's book spotlight series with called 3 Wishes. So this tried and true Genie lamp has been with us almost since day one here at PR from the Heart. That said, Norene, you have given freely from your heart to not only children, parents, and families and educators now through your work as a best-selling children's author, but you have given back through your service in the military. So you have given your life for our country as well, too. So this is your time to receive, Norene. So you are being given 3 wishes. I think the only automatic disqualifiers, according to the Genie of the Lamp, 1, you can't make someone fall in love with you. That has to happen organically. And you can't ask for more wishes. But I think anything beyond the scope of that is fair game. So these wishes, they can be for yourself. They can be for the children of the world. They can also be for the planet. They can be, whatever it is that you would like. What would your 3 wishes be?
Well, I would wish that, by the way, I do want to mention that Molly and Dane is going to be coming out in a Spanish version.
Super excited about that.
Okay, so I would wish that it become a bestseller. I would wish that Hurricane Hullabaloos becomes a bestseller. And I would wish that I come up with money to cover all the travels I need to make for to promote all of my book adventures.
It's long since been said that when one's wishes come from one's heart, that they have a greater chance of coming true. And again, you're having the opportunity to work with you to this particular point in time and being introduced to your beautiful writing and just the work of service. This is one of the other things that I wanted to mention as well as we close out this episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Is there's something about service. It's long since been said that if you are moving through a problem or a challenge, one of the ways that you can do your part to move through that is to place yourself in the service of other people, because you can just spend time ruminating, wondering how it's going to turn out, worrying, stressing, or you can do a combination of 2 other things. One is you can give it to God, as the expression goes, which totally helps, right? As well as you can also help someone else. Because when you help someone else with whatever it is that they may need help with, you know the fact that you're here for a purpose, you're here that you're here for a reason, and that it always goes back to what I mentioned previously, how things always have a greater way of working themselves. And I remember when my grandmother had passed 12 years ago, a little over 12 years ago now, and I remember having a conversation with her, and I always have this conversation regularly. And being part Polish, we refer to our grandmothers as babcia. And so I've said, babcia, when we, show me whom to serve, how to serve, when to serve, and where to serve, and in what capacity to serve, and I'm there. So there's a very strong connection. So if you are moving through the problem, whether it be you as a grown adult, or if your little one is moving through the problem, to take the time to help someone in need, whether it be to donate your time, whether it be to donate your finances, whether it be to just, be very appreciative of the fact that you're doing the very best that you can. These are all different things that you can extract for yourself or pass along to someone, a fellow neighbor in your life, especially if it is a little one as well too. But when we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. But fear not, there are many more magical trolley stops to come. But before we put the bow, the beautiful bow on episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, raise your hand if you have had fun on this episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We see hands from myself. We see hands up from Norene. We see paws up from little Forrest. And we see hands up from the little ones on screen. As we like to say, that means mission accomplished, job well done. Again, we want to thank everyone in the Twin Cities for your support for the landmark children's literacy event at Mall of America. Part of that event was our third annual Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom, which is PR from the Heart's annual flagship event, and also Turning Pages, Changing Lives. If you haven't had the opportunity to do so, you can head on over to our official YouTube channel and enjoy the official event recap video from Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom and Turning Pages, Changing Lives. We're looking forward to sharing all of the great things from that very special day. August 9th, 2025 will live in the minds and the hearts of children, parents, and families across the Twin Cities, and we're doing our part to put out that good energy into the world beyond the scope of that as well, too. We, of course, are now counting down. We are now 2 trolley stops away from the big number of 250. That is our 250th trolley stop of the Children's Book Spotlight series, which also coincides with the celebration of our 7-year anniversary of this very program. So, of course, if you are a children's author or if you are a middle grade author and would love to share your inspiring story, just like Norene did here today on episode number 248 of the Children's Book Spotlight series and the release of your brand new children's book, if you would like to be a featured guest on a forthcoming episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series, head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Instagram, Facebook, X, all at PR From the Heart. And of course, by visiting our official website, prfromtheheart.com. As we mentioned, the sister program of the Children's Book Spotlight series is the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, co-hosted by myself and David Newell, who played the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Of course, if you would like to have David and I deliver a heartfelt review of your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us. You can head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. And of course, as we are now entering into our 12th year of service here at PR From the Heart, we have been very blessed and fortunate for over a decade to be of service to some of the most amazing authors in the world of children's literature, ranging from celebrities like the iconic Sharon Lois and Bram, the co-creators of the beloved children's anthem, Skinnamarink, Skinnamarinky Dinky Dink, Skinnamarinky Doo, we love you, ranging to some of the leading voices in the world of children's literature like John Parra and Catherine Roy, to those authors whose journeys are just taking flight like Norene. If you are looking for dedicated PR publicity support and would like to facilitate a book media tour in a city of your choosing or a national book media tour, just like Norene is in the midst of currently as of right now, you can head on over to our official website, once again, prfromtheheart.com, schedule your courtesy connection call, and let us see how we can be of service to you. One final time, of course, you can head on over to Norene's official website, authornoreneolsen.com. Purchase, read, and enjoy your copy of Molly and Dane, Hair Problems, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Miriam Laundry Publishing. If you head on over to Amazon.com, be sure to leave that 5-star review. Again, that lets Norene know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, and educators. And as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Molly and Dane, Hair Problems, again, you make that kind recommendation, let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. And then lastly, again, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents. One of the many ways that you can make this the best school year ever is by reminding your students that they have the ability to move through whatever challenges or problems come their way, and that they can experience some life lessons that will help them throughout the course of not only the school year, but the rest of their lives in the process. You can head on over to Norene's official website, authornoreneolsen.com, to book your very own in-person or virtual author school visit with Norene, and stay connected post Children's Book Spotlight Series. We've included Norene's official social media platforms in the description below to once again keep the conversation going post Children's Book Spotlight Series. But again, as we've heard the trolley, that means that it is time to go. We want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, for your continued support of children's authors, whether it be picture book authors, middle grade authors, illustrators such as Norene, who again are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books, for the pillars of our community, local libraries and children's and independent bookstores. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world one final time. We always feel his presence and spirit whenever we do a children's book spotlight series, whenever we wake up each and every day and we have the opportunity to be of service. And we remember the late Fred Rogers. Did you know that Fred weighed 143 pounds during his entire natural adult life? Now, you might be wondering, little Forrest, Norene, why are you telling us what Fred weighed during the course of his natural adult life? Well, there's a reason for that. Fred reminded us of our inherent worth and our inherent value. And he reminded us that we were loved and special just the way that we are. He did that through his natural weight, because there is one letter in I, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. So in his own private numerology, Fred knew what the heck he was doing. And in many respects, of course, as we do our part in our own way to keep Fred's memory and legacy alive, we share our favorite 3 numbers of 243. So as Norene was kind to spend some quality time with us here in our neighborhood, as little Forrest was spending some quality time with us here, as he always does, we remind you of your inherent worth and your inherent value. We remind you that you are whole, that you are healthy, that you are complete, that you are liked, that you are loved just the way that you are, that you have skills and gifts and talents that can not only help you, but can allow you to serve other people for the highest and greatest good. And knowing the fact that if you are moving through a problem as well, that you have the inner strength, that you have the inner resources, and that God's got your back. And that things always have a way of working themselves out. And especially if you surrender and let go, oftentimes there's miracles and breakthroughs that can happen. And especially there's more of those that are on the horizon. So just as there's more magical trolley stops to come, we are also affirming that there are miracles and breakthroughs that are happening for all of our listeners and viewers who are enjoying the Children's Book Spotlight series as well. So for Little Forrest, for Norene Olsen, for myself, John Masiulionis, again, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.